So what you're looking at here is a visual representation of my coming year, 2021. It's based on an idea that I've had recently to show visually how the transits in a year ahead are going to work. I've been doing this for more than 30 years now. I've manually calculated the position of all of the planets and basically predicted my year ahead. And I've lived my life this way. And now I'm making this visual way so I can kind of present this to people and maybe help people. And I'll show you how it works. So around the edge, you get the months, and then the actual transits themselves are kind of shown on these lines, these additions next to the months. And the really good thing is you can see the relationship. So, for example, here in March, there's Saturn is going to trine Uranus. Now that also happens here in July as he goes retrograde, and then it's direct again in December. So you can see these three influences. Now, the interpretation for this is ideas and dreams to reality. So it's a really good time to take something that you love doing and see if you can actually bring this more real. So this is basically inspired what's happened now. It's an example of how using astrology in life and knowing when certain trends are coming can inspire you to take action. So I'm actually now creating this video because I've been doing this for myself all of my life. And it's, well, I wouldn't say it's a hobby. It's more than that because, I guide my life and it enriches my life. And now I'm actually making this more out there into reality, possibly as a business, because I would like to help other people and coach people. So this is a good way then to see this relationship. And also you can see which planets, for example, a planet can be aspected by 2 or 3 different planets, but then there's a general focus on an area in your life coming in from different ways. So this visual representation of a year really helps that. And I'll come back to that in a second because there's another major transit showing, which has lasted many years, but it's also involving the same kind of planet. So I'll explain that in a moment. But let me give you some context about me. I was working in Cambodia for 3 years, and during COVID, I was laid off and the borders closed. So I was kind of locked down for almost a year now. The visas were suspended, so I'm not able to leave. And I've started doing things that I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about astrology and spirituality and also investing. I'm taking that much more seriously now, and I'm making a separate blog. So this Uranus thing is actually coming out because it's such a long influence this year as planets go retrograde. It's not just one. Saturn is doing this, but also Jupiter is also trining Uranus as well. So there's, like I say, this relationship of planets being aspected by a number of planets. So that's one influence it's having on me. Take a quick look at, there's one negative thing. I think I'm quite a lucky person. Take a quick look at my chart overall. You'll see, first of all, I'm one of these people, it's all positive. I've got a grand trine made up of three trines, and it's actually a kite. There are 2 sextiles coming off it, which is exceptionally lucky, and there's just one opposition actually involving Uranus, which is opposition Venus, and that's caused me to have some fairly eccentric relationships in the past, but it's not very close in aspect. It's 5 degrees off. But to look at June here, I want to explain the way that your natal planets are affected by transit. So looking at June, Jupiter is going to square Neptune. So the actual basic interpretation for this is that life becomes quite open and there are less restrictions. You feel a bit lost and it's hard to understand situations. You don't see what's in front of you. But it's not that negative. It can kind of be a bit positive. Now, this is made more powerful because there's an eclipse in this month, and also the planet is retrograde, Jupiter, and it turns direct over Neptune, so it spends longer on this, and that generally makes it a much more powerful influence. So I thought, oh, great, life's going to be really open, but of course you always need to interpret these things according to your own natal planet. So looking at my natal Neptune, it's right here in the sixth house. Now, there's nothing that negative. There's actually two sextiles coming into it, which strengthen it a little bit. But there are two things to notice. One is it's 1 degree conjunct Jupiter. And whenever Jupiter's next to a planet or on a planet, it really strengthens the influence. And it's also in the sixth house, now, which is to do with health. And Neptune is to do with mystery, illusion. And the effect it's been in my life, it's one of the few negatives, really, because I think I am a lucky person. I don't want to sound trite, but I feel grateful and blessed. And one of the things, though, is that I've had a lifelong, undiagnosed, mysterious illness. I actually need a hip operation at some point in the future, and I'm a bit too young for that kind of thing, but it's some mysterious, no one can explain why I've got this. I've had all sorts of symptoms over the years, but never a proper diagnosis. So it could well be that when Jupiter contacts that, when you look at what's being contacted, you say, but how am I affected natally by this planet? And natally, I'm affected by poor health. That's how Neptune affects me. So we could well activate that. But you also take into context the situation I'm in. So it might be by this time that I'm still inside Cambodia, but the border's open, because Jupiter can be to do with travel. So, and it'll be coming in from, I think by then it might be in the ninth house, which is to do with travel. So it might be that it's actually time for me, the border's open, but it's hard for me to know where to go, or am I going to be in trouble for being in this country for so long, etc., etc. But as the year goes on, I'll make more videos and updates so you can see the way these predictions are playing out. And you can also go and look at my blog, where there's a much more detailed write-up generally. I'm just presenting, a brief overview in this video. So the other big influence this year is here. It starts in January. I'm already past it. It's Pluto trine Saturn. And it's starting then in August, and it will end in November. You can see here in October, it starts off retrograde and turns direct over the planet. Now this, of course, Pluto is the slowest moving planet, so it's been going on for a few years, and it's had a very strong effect. One thing is that during COVID, when I've had more time, I've actually kind of been out and socialised a lot more. And I mean, without going into deep detail, I've had a couple of affairs, and I've always been quite, I'd say a bit repressed. If you look at my Saturn here, it's in the 12th house, which is to do with limitation and secrecy, also with the Sun. And I've always been a very quiet, secretive person, but including kind of sexually. And there was kind of a sexual awakening as Pluto transited this. It transited from the 8th house, which is to do with sexuality. I think another thing was that I stopped writing these kind of secret diaries, and my writing was always kept to myself, and I've started putting things out there a lot more on social media. I did that unconsciously, not to take advantage of the trine, although when I look, that's something that this transit would be helping. But also I think the need for secrecy, which is actually, there's just no need for that. And again, this is an example of how using astrology in life else. So I've got this trend which is positively healing my Saturn. So what does Saturn cause me? It causes me to always be a fairly secretive, quiet person for no reason particularly. And this can back up my other Uranus trend of me starting to post videos and show people what I do with astrology and my spirituality, and then in separate spheres my investing, putting myself out there, ending the secrecy. It heals that limitation. If you look here, there's a trine to the 4th house, the moon, which is conjunct Pluto, and that caused me to, that was in my past, the domestic situation was very violent, very unhappy, and I spent a lot of my life kind of healing those situations. And this positive influence means that I can really, again, put myself out there, start making videos. So I'm taking advantage of that situation. So this kind of just gives you a brief overview of the year. The two main influences, there's a lot of planets going towards Uranus, which is then in fifth house. It's the only negative opposition in my chart, but it's the influence that I'm using is to take these things I've always liked doing for myself and I'm presenting it to the world. And that influence, I think, is helping. Because what I'd really like to do then is then show people that this is how it's helped me and transform my life, and I can kind of inspire other people to get the same benefit. And then also there's a lot of Saturn influence generally, transiting Saturn and things going to natal Saturn. And it's to do, generally it's trines. And there's this general lifting of limitation. It's happened already with me with these affairs and my sexuality. But now I'm also consciously using this. And you're seeing the benefit. The fact that you're watching this video, you're listening and you're getting my ideas and looking at this artwork and stuff. That I'm using my understanding of astrology to ride that beneficial trend and actually change my life. Something that I've been doing all of my life. And now I'm starting this to try and show other people how they can also do that. So as I say, I'll be updating throughout the year, showing you what's happening to me and how these transits are working out. So stay tuned and feel free to follow me. Thanks for watching.